Hello and welcome to Gentle Warriors. This series is brought to you by Caregiver Saathi and aims to share the stories of caregivers. I am your host, Jannat Baswani, and I'm delighted to present our guest for this episode, MJ Neela. Neela, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you, Jannat.
So, could you give the audience a brief introduction about yourself?
Sure. I'm Neela, and I'm connected to the editing domain basically.
Mhm.
And these days, I'm doing that more on a freelance basis. In the past, I've done many different things, including the teaching line, some of the content work. I was management at one point, then copy editing also at one point, but generally in the editing domain.
Right.
That's me professionally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also mother of two young people, I must say. They are no more children, they are grown up. Yeah. Yeah. And I stay in New Delhi.
Lovely. So jumping straight in, how or why did you become a caregiver?
Yeah. So everything was going well till actually my father passed away from leukemia very, very abruptly.
Okay.
Until then, it was, a normal, happy family
Mhm.
going to summer vacation to my parents' place, kids having a good time at their grandparents' town. But soon after my father passed away, my mother's health started going down,
Mhm.
and I brought her to stay with me.
Right.
Even then, she was all right. She was not so bad.
Mhm.
But very soon she started, displaying signs of dementia,
Okay.
which I wasn't aware of at that point. We just thought it was odd, her behavior.
Yeah.
And then she started getting repetitive, which she would say the same things over and over again.
Mhm.
And then I took her for checkups, and well, that journey then started.
Yeah.
So she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease.
Okay. Right. So, like you said, it was your mother who you were the primary caregiver to. What were your initial thoughts and feelings about, entering the caregiving role? And how do you think those feelings have changed over time, now looking back?
Right. How did I feel about taking on the role?
Hmm.
Well, uh, there wasn't any time to think about, taking on or not taking on. There was no option at that point of time.
Yeah.
My mother is diagnosed with this illness. There was initial panic in the family,
Yeah.
and she was in any case staying with me at that point of time. So it was like a natural thing that happened, that I started taking care of her um, as her degeneration basically started.
Yeah.
So so I just went with the flow, started learning about how to go about it, because I really had no clue when I started my journey. I had zero idea about what it meant, now what Alzheimer's is really about. I had no idea. I had to learn from the scratch.
Yeah.
And basically, I think me and my mother started a journey together. She went downhill,
Yeah.
I, I went uphill in my learning curve.
Yeah. So, obviously, caregiving comes with a lot of challenges and frustrations, especially on the caregiver themselves. So, what were some of your challenges and frustrations, through the journey?
Um, yeah. So challenges, definitely, I would say in the initial stages, it was the most challenging period of my time. There were,
Yeah.
children were in school, high school. Son was going through his board exam.
Yeah.
Uh, family things happening, parallelly.
Yeah.
It's not just one thing I'm doing. It's not the caregiver that I am.
Yeah.
So that was a very, very challenging time for me. And what are the challenges specifically? Finding out what this new situation calls me to do, basically. What am I going to do? What is my role? I wasn't sure what I was, expected to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I took her to the doctors. There are so many trips. Initially, there was a first opinion, second opinion, third opinion, because we couldn't come to grips with, this new diagnosis. We didn't know what it was, and is the medication correct? Do we just go ahead with what this doctor is saying? So there were these consultations multiple times, and but the medications had started. But the story about how the medication started also was, because I discovered that she was hallucinating, which I didn't know was part of this thing. Uh, she was hallucinating about people. She would see shadows, she would tell me stories about people stealing things from her. She was misplacing things,
Yeah.
basically, obviously, because she couldn't remember. And I
Yeah.
didn't know what she was going through at that point of time. So it was very difficult for me to handle her.
Yeah.
I would say my challenge was to handle her because at that point of time, I didn't know what she was going through.
Yeah.
Perhaps if I did, perhaps as a child, if I had seen my mother taking care of an Alzheimer's patient, I would have known,
Yeah.
but I had no clue.
Yeah.
So I had problem handling her behavior.
Mm-hmm.
She was very irritable.
Yeah.
She would keep repeating things, expect me to keep answering her
Yeah.
over and over again the same thing.
Yeah.
Um, and her hallucinations and her misplacing of things, money. She could not find her money and she would start, blaming people around. That's a very typical thing that happens. Now, on hindsight, I know that, but at that point of time, it was chaos
Yeah.
in the house. Um, so yeah, these things also, uh, at that point of time she would make her own breakfast
Mm.
because she was physically fit. You see,
Right.
my mother still is, I would say, physically she is all right, except her mental faculties are not there
Yeah.
with her. Mm. So she would make her breakfast, and it took me some time to understand that she forgot to eat her breakfast.
Yeah.
Looking back, I feel terrible about it. But some of her behavior, you know, her irritation, her, always being on the edge,
Yeah.
uh, I can actually look back and say it's because probably she did forgot to eat her breakfast.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a simple thing like that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, she cannot retrieve her things. There was one point of time when I was cleaning her room,
Mm-hmm.
I found cash under her mattress. I found her gold earrings in unimaginable place. I found some boiled eggs in her cupboard.
Yeah.
you know, so that was that was a journey, and it was. I mean, when I look back, it is kind of a comic. When I think back about it, there's a comical aspect to it. I can laugh about it.
Mm-hmm.
At that point of time, it was pretty challenging. Yes.
Yeah. Of course. And I think, you're also learning about it as you go. So, were there ever times where, you yourself personally, what was hard for you to accept, to learn, to, do things and be like, okay, I'm taking care. So, what was that journey like?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes. So I remember one specific day, when I sat down,
Mm-hmm.
middle of things, and I said to myself, I have to do this.
Yeah.
You know, Uh, that was a day I think I started, uh, you know, uh, taking it upon me to, you know, focus on how I'm going to deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
Till then, I think there was a kind of randomness in how I was dealing with it. Ye bhi karo, wo bhi karo, this has to be done, that has to be done. Everything was something that had to be done.
Yeah.
So when I did that, took an onus on the situation,
Yeah.
like to do this. Now, how best do I go about it?
Yeah.
How do I, spread myself out? Because that's what I essentially was expected of me, you know.
Yeah.
How do I look after her? How do I look after the house? How do I look after the little bit of work that I was managing to do? It was getting more and more difficult to
Yeah.
do that because just didn't have the bandwidth to focus.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that was that, I think. Yeah. What was your question exactly? The second part of your question?
The second part of the question almost was that just like you mentioned, there was an expectation of taking care of everything. So what was dealing with that expectation like, and dealing, with whether that's self-compassion or whether that's guilt, how is that as well, dealing with the expectations?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So all of that was definitely part of the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, well, guilt at that point of time in the initial bit,
Mm-hmm.
not so much because I was floundering myself.
Yeah.
So, but later on it does set in.
Mm-hmm.
When you understand what she is going through as a patient,
Yeah.
when you understand the situation, understand the disease, what exactly it does to a person, how it manifests, that's when a different kind of realization sets in. It enables you to look at everything from a very different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, what were the most important things you learned from your caregiving experience, whether that was about yourself, about the situation, or there's specific insights with other caregivers who are also, primary caregivers of people with Alzheimer's as well?
Yeah, I did learn a whole lot.
Mm.
So one of the things I think I'm happy I did that quite early on
Yeah.
was I reached out. The
Right.
first people I reached out to was the Alzheimer's Society of India. They're
Hmm.
located in Delhi. They have a Delhi chapter.
Yeah.
I say they were very helpful. There are people who came over, met me at home,
Yeah.
explained to me what I am up against, basically.
Yeah.
You know, and that was so helpful for me at that point of time. It really helped me look at everything from a different light and help me gain control over my new situation, basically.
Yeah.
So they also made me understand how I should prepare myself in the sense that get my mother's thing organized, things,
Mm.
her bank things, her financial aspects, her own property. She had a house still, back in Assam that I had to manage. How do I manage all that? Get everything in place so that, you know, I don't face problem in the future,
Yeah.
which as a caregiver initially you don't think so much about the future, how it's going to pan out,
Yeah.
how things are going to unfold in the future. So
Hmm.
I did that, and I am so glad I did that, and I really want other people to know this. It is
Yeah.
so important to do this
Yeah.
because right now my mother, of course, she doesn't have any recollection. She cannot sign on anything.
Yeah.
She does not know anything right now. She's like a baby, right? So I did that, and also I reached out to my friends. There are people who were caregiving
Mm.
other patients. I reached out to people who were caregivers or of other Alzheimer's patients,
Yeah.
and it really helped me also. When I went, I visited people. I went to their houses, saw how they were coping, and then when you see a person coping in a similar situation, it gives you a lot of strength, and you feel you're not alone.
Yeah.
That helped me feel that I am part of something, that is happening. It's not just me. It's not happening just to me.
Yeah.
That is very very good for me as a caregiver, I must say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, finding your community in the sense of support, especially as a support system, it's necessary because, a lot of caregivers do feel the burden on their shoulders a lot of the time.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. So, yeah, you're right. So, I learned of ways to
Hmm.
uh, seek help.
Yeah.
You know, I learned of avenues where I can take my mother, like, for example, I learned that I could take my mother to a daycare center.
Yeah.
I didn't reach out. That knowledge wouldn't have been there with me, I
Yeah.
don't have knowledge. It's because I reached out that I realized there are a few, of course, I guess only in the metro cities, but
Yeah.
still there were, and I did use all of them. I started taking my mother to a daycare center, which was a very good facility,
Yeah.
They're called Hope Kasha. They're really good, and they do cognitive activities in the daytime. So I started getting into a routine where in the morning I would take my mother there, like I take my kids to the school earlier. I leave her there for a good 4 hours, where they make her do a lot of activities, craft and singing,
Yeah.
and then I pick her up after lunch.
Yeah.
That gave her something to do.
Yeah.
It helped her deal with the kind of depression that she was going into because of loneliness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if I'm around in the house, she's right here. I'm
Yeah.
right here. There are maids around, kids around. Still, being indoors is a very different feeling.
Yeah.
Vis-a- taking her out to a
Mm.
center where there are similar patients. They're all dementia patients,
Yeah.
but they're all of her age group, little up and down, and they're all doing some things together. That's an entirely different feeling, you
Yeah.
know. And I saw that cognitively it did help her. She improved a little bit, she jumped up instead of going down entirely. So that helped her, and it helped me because I got a few hours for myself,
Yeah.
that enabled me to do something for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I know you said, you had two not so young kids at that point, and how did you manage your other responsibilities when it comes to, like I said, family members as well as work? How did that take a toll on you?
Um, Work did take a toll,
Hmm.
because I was at that point freelancing. We were actually posted in a lot of different stations postings, so I had to constantly leave my jobs and pick up something new,
Yeah.
and then I started freelancing.
Hmm.
It is quite easy to say, okay, freelancing, you can do what you want from your own space, but that space has to be a very congenial space, good for my focus,
Hmm.
which wasn't more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so that did take a toll, but I still managed a little bit as much as I could. My kids, yes, everybody takes their share of the toll actually in the family,
Yeah. Yeah.
because my focus is split.
Hmm. Yeah.
I have to take care of one additional person whose needs become more and more over time.
Yeah.
As years progress, she needs more and more caretaking. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think it's a learning lesson for them too that this
Mhm.
happens. You
Yeah.
need to take care of each other in the family.
Yeah. Like you said, you did reach out for help and you did find other avenues of support, but was there ever a point where, you were hesitant in asking for help from others?
Yeah, yeah. So asking for help is kind of a complicated thing,
Yeah.
especially when you consider yourself, I can do this. um, Also, who do you ask for help? And what kind of help do you ask? You
Mm.
know, what can they do eventually?
Yeah.
That these are the things that would go through my mind when I would think about who do I ask? Within the family, yes, I think best help that a person can offer a caregiver. So listen her out. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes I don't need any physical help. Sometimes I just want to, unburden myself. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, just to say what I'm dealing with, for example. And when you sit down and think, there are not very many people who you can do that with. you
Yeah.
know you might have a big circle of friends or socialize a whole lot, but there are not too many people who would be willing to just hear you out on a very very mundane thing, like, what happened in my daily chore. I had to change his diaper and this happened. Who wants to listen to that? you know
Mm-hmm.
but but I had to actually school myself to do that. I had This was a problem that was within me actually.
Mm-hmm.
I had to over time learn how to reach out for
Yeah.
help, how to be okay about telling people something.
Yeah.
And then of course you discover that people do listen.
Yeah.
Some people do listen. You find one or two people. You might not find a whole lot of people, but you do find a couple of people, and that really helps.
Yeah.
It really helps. I do think asking for help. Yeah. So this is of course just talking. I'm saying, venting out.
Yeah.
But asking for specifics.
Yeah.
That also, I think I learned how to do that. You know.
Yeah.
Of course, if you can, just get a maid or a domestic help to
Mhm.
stay a few extra hours.
Yeah.
That helps. And if it is okay, you can ask your family members to contribute to that, because it's to look after the mother of our siblings.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
do that. Secondly, also, I remember once I had to step out for something urgently, and I asked my neighbor, "Can you sit in for 2 hours?" And she was more than happy. She was
Right.
like, "Of course, Neela,"
Yeah.
And it also comes as a surprise that people would say, "Of course."
Yeah.
You might hesitate to ask,
Yeah.
but if you do, it's pleasantly surprising to find that people are willing to come and help you, actually. I guess for others, it might not be clear about what they are expected to do or how they can help.
Yeah.
So if you clearly ask them, I, I think it is not enough to say, can you help me out somehow?
Yeah.
No, because they don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
There's some clarity about, can you sit with my mother for 2 hours? You
Yeah.
know, that is a specific thing that I'm asking. Or can you please pick up this thing for me because I'm
Mm.
not able to step out?
Yeah.
So these things are very specific, and I think it matters a lot. And once I started doing that, life became easier for me, you
Yeah.
know. And yeah, definitely that was very helpful in my caregiving journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just that one step of actually going out and asking for help, no matter, you may be afraid of what the answer might be, but like you said, you can be very pleasantly surprised as well. And it is important to ask for the specific kind of help so others also know how to help you then.
Yes, I realized that other people might not be, not might not, they will not understand. It is
Hmm.
impossible for them to understand what exactly the caregiver is going through. You
Yeah.
know, I'm the one who's 24/7 there with the patient, and
Yeah.
I'm the only one who understands what it is. Unless I'm telling them clearly what is involved, you know, of course, I mean, everybody won't have people who will listen to you, but there are people, like I said, you might not find 10 people, you will find two people.
Yeah.
You should be happy with that. Even that helps.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are a few things that you did to make you feel confident and in control in some certain stressful situations as part of this journey?
Okay. So, in control is is I think a myth.
Mm-hmm.
One
Yeah.
is actually in control of anything.
Yeah.
I think what helped me was to actually learn the opposite, to
Yeah.
learn that I'm not in control of anything.
Right. Yeah.
In fact, when I learned that, it became easier for me to let go of certain things. There's so many things that won't happen like the way you visualize in your mind it should happen,
Yeah.
right? The way I would like to see things happen, the way that I would do
Mm.
things in their position, perhaps. But nothing really is in my control because everybody is a different person. Each personality is so different. In fact, I think I understood my mother more as when I was taking care of her than I
Mm-hmm.
did all these years, before that. She was just a mother, you
Yeah.
know. She took care of us. She loved us. She, rooted for us, But as a person, her
Yeah.
personalities, her quirks, her sense of pride, you
Mm-hmm.
know, her sensitivities,
Yeah.
these things I learned much later, actually,
Yeah.
And when you learn that, you know that you cannot control another person. You
Yeah.
cannot expect the other person to behave the way you think one should behave, the
Yeah.
way you would behave.
Yeah.
So I would say when you talk of control, when I learned to let go,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
found that things were falling in place so much better.
Yeah.
I don't need to control anything, you know.
Mm.
So I think that helps. Yeah, not expecting to be in control of the whole thing.
Yeah.
you know. And then you asked about self help. Did you ask about self care?
Yeah.
You said self care. Yes. So one other thing that I think I did okay in was taking care of myself.
Yeah.
I did not let go of that.
Yeah.
I I was doing yoga, I was doing exercises, I was doing stretches, whatever, I started doing mindful meditations. I would get up earlier in the morning and sit down, even if it's just 10 minutes. Sometimes I might get 5 minutes
Yeah.
because as soon as I get up, my mother would, get insecure and she'll also get up.
Yeah.
But still, everyone has to find their own space, their own time to do that.
Mm.
But I think I'm very happy that I did that because it helped me stay in a calmer space, through the day.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it helped me tackle the rest of the day so much better. So I would say that the mindful meditation that I did, sometimes I would manage half an hour,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes just 10 minutes,
Yeah.
but it helped. Then I took care of my body in the sense that I would keep doing some form of exercise,
Yeah.
even if it is, not a very regular thing, but
Mm-hmm.
I do that. If I can, like when I kept the domestic help for a few extra hours, I could manage some evening walks also, and that felt really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. I did all that. Yes.
Yeah.
So that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you said you were very particular about ensuring that, you had a self-care routine, so to say, but was it hard to sort of get over or deal with maybe some guilt when it came to setting those boundaries for yourself?
Um, yes, it does happen a lot. It
Yeah.
does happen a lot, especially when I'm going out with friends.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, you know. So when there's something planned in my circle of friends or my sisters or my brothers, whatever, I try my best not to say I know I cannot come. I try my best to say yes.
Yeah.
And then I figure out quickly how am I going to do this? A lot of jigsaw puzzle things I have to do. Put this here, put this there, put this in a different time frame. But I try to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? But when I announce that I'm going out,
Mm-hmm.
say why, you know, why don't you take me with you?
Yeah.
When they say that, it is so. hurtful,
Yeah.
you know, because I cannot take her, and
Yeah.
I have to tell her, why can't I take her? She would hate it if I step out without her.
Yeah.
My mother is a very social person,
Mhm.
and if I tell her, it's my friend's birthday, she has a party, chalo, let's go. She
Yeah.
would be more than happy to just tag along with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is so difficult because I cannot take her everywhere, and I would have to keep caring for her in another place also. Sometimes I need the time just for myself.
Yeah.
Because all the time I am giving her care, and I need the time without that.
Yeah.
Taking her along, of course, a lot of people will say, come. I mean, you're doing this, bring her and come.
Yeah.
What they don't realize is when I bring her and come, I'm also bringing my care along, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But so that induces a lot of guilt when I take out time just for myself,
Yeah.
separate from her.
Yeah.
Because the more time we spend together, through the years, it's almost over 9 years now.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that happens is she gets very attached to the caregiver. She's very attached to me. It
Mm-hmm.
like I would find that I have no space for myself.
Yeah.
Even if we're in the same house, if
Yeah.
I'm not in the room next to her, she would feel lonely
Yeah.
because, of course, she forgets that I'm in the next room or just gone
Yeah.
to the bathroom or something. So there are, yeah, guilt feelings happen, but then I take a step back and I tell myself, no, don't give in to this, you know, go do your thing, you know,
Yeah.
and I go and I
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
That you have to do.
Yeah.
Because when I come back, I'm happier
Yeah.
and I'm happy with what I'm going to do now, you know.
Yeah.
I will be happier changing her diaper.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
she's
think.
okay, you know. In
Yeah.
the meantime, she's okay because I've catered for her food, her toilet, her hygiene, everything. I've made sure that she's okay, she's safe. Somebody else is with her.
Yeah.
So she's okay. And when I come back in a happy frame of mind, she greets me happily. If nothing is, she doesn't remember anything.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is important to be able to give yourself that break because just like you said, you come back with a refreshed mind and back to it and with not as much frustration or stress about anything. You had your break, you had a respite, which is incredibly important. Otherwise, it does lead to burnout and
Oh, yeah.
so
Oh, yeah. It does. I mean, I've had those spells.
yeah.
And it can be bad. So you have to pull yourself up and
Mhm.
take care of yourself, do your own things, and then you're better placed to do the work that you have taken on yourself or you have to do. You know,
Mhm.
I'm in a better position to do it. I'm in a better frame of mind.
Yeah.
It helps.
Like you actually mentioned, it's been a 9-year journey almost, or perhaps more. And what is something maybe you would tell yourself 9 years ago when you were maybe getting into this journey that you've learned now or over the course of the 9 years?
Yeah, most of the things I think I have covered. I
Mhm.
have learned that I don't have to be in control of the situation all the time.
Yeah.
I have learned to, yes, I have learned not to take things personally,
Yeah.
you know, because it is very natural for the patient because she is going through so much
Yeah.
actually herself to say mean things sometimes. Well, a lot of times, you know, they
Yeah.
do say very mean things, if they're unhappy or they're having an ache or whatever they're going through,
Mhm.
really in an insecure space.
Yeah.
I'm the closest to her and she's going to lash out at me.
Yeah.
She's going to say the meanest things. So in the initial part of my journey, I would be crying, and
Yeah.
why is she saying this? I
Yeah.
mean, this is what she says.
Wow.
I would be crying and sobbing and feeling so terrible. So I learned at some point in these years not to take all this personally.
Yeah.
And that is so good, that feeling is so good. Saying something, it just goes off. And
Yeah.
I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Sometimes, if there's a confrontation kind of thing, I have learned, that's a good lesson I've learned,
Yeah.
just step out of the room.
Yeah.
Okay? As soon as I see that it's going to a confrontation mode, I just leave what I'm doing. I step out of the room, give it
Mhm.
a 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. Of
Yeah.
course, I do see that she's safe.
Yeah.
And then I come back. But when I come back, I have to put on a smile and come back.
Yeah.
You know, I have
Mm.
to forget everything,
Yeah.
on a smile. And but when I enter the room smiling, she's forgotten everything. She's smiling back and she's happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that just resolved everything.
Hmm.
So that's a very important lesson I learned. you know, Step away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're coming to a close, but the last thing I'd like to ask you to share are some of your joyful moments or anecdotes during this caregiving journey that have kept you going, despite the burnout, the stress, etc.
Yeah, I must say there were, okay, so from my mother herself, I mean,
Yeah.
although I just said there are a lot of places where, you have to be resolved tactfully.
Mhm.
Once in a while, just out of the blue, she would say something that would make me feel, wow, and make me feel okay about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
One day I was, after giving her a bath and all that, and making her, dress up, uh, putting moisturizer on her feet.
Mm-hmm.
She's sitting there, and I'm looking down, and her feet, foot is on my hands, and from there she's saying, "You are having to do so much,"
Yeah.
you know. And I was so surprised and taken aback that,
Yeah.
I when we realized that she does sense, she does know at some level,
Yeah.
things like that. And then, every time I would give her food, she will always ask, "What about you?"
Yeah.
In fact, at one point, when everybody is going through their own journeys, kids
Mm-hmm.
are having their own, dealing with their own thing, they're also growing up people, everybody deals with their own thing. At one point, my mother was the only one who would ask me, "Have you eaten?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Whenever I give her food. So that, and of course, there are many joyful memories of my kids interacting with my mother.
Yeah.
I have a lot of good memories about that. In spite of this, my kids would have fun with her.
Yeah.
Sometimes because of a memory, they would have fun because, of the repetitive
Yeah.
things they would do and just laugh out loud. You
Yeah.
know. So those are good memories I have. Also, a lot of people visit, to see my mother.
Yeah.
Relatives come, they ask, her family, my father's family, they want to know what is happening, and they would keep in touch. In that uh, journey, even I started reconnected with a lot of relatives,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I would always say, yes, please come and see her. I have no problems. I like it that people come, and she likes it that somebody, although she doesn't recognize anybody, but
Mm-hmm.
somebody has come to say hello, to sit down. Only thing I tell them is just speak to her normally. You know,
Yeah.
don't be awkward. Just speak to her normally, and she'll respond.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are some nice things. Also, there are some nice things also.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for sharing. And, like you said, being appreciated and knowing that she senses, your help and what you are doing keeps you also going. It's like a glimpse of your mother. And it's always something that we cherish, as children.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, thank you so much for coming on to Gentle Warriors. And I'm sure your story will ring true to so many people who are also caregivers to people with Alzheimer's and even otherwise. And your dedication to making sure that you are taking care of yourself is one of the biggest things that we try and tell caregivers that you should do.
Yeah.
So, is any last few bits or words you would like to say to the audience before we end?
Well, yeah, I agree with you in that caregivers need to also think about themselves, take care of themselves. And when I started my journey, caregiver, I didn't know the term caregiver existed. There was nothing like that. A lady in the house is supposed to look after everybody. If somebody falls ill, that's an additional thing she is supposed to do. You know, nobody even thinks about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I find now, especially when I'm connecting with organizations that are in the field, like Caregiver Saathi, for example,
Yeah.
I feel so good at the attention that caregivers are getting.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, uh, you telling the caregivers take care of yourself, which is such a great thing to do.
Yeah.
And then it really helps. It really, I would say that taking care of yourself really helps to make your caregiving so much better. You
Yeah.
know, yeah,
Definitely. Yeah, and I think one last thing before I end is just that while we say caregivers taking care of themselves, I think also people around caregivers recognizing that, you could lend a helping hand or just be there for them. Because, like you said, emotionally, also caregivers do need support.
yeah. In fact,
Definitely.
my kids also pitched in so many times. I would go out and my daughter would sit in and say, "Go have fun
Yeah.
with your friends now. I'm
Yeah.
with her." You
Yeah.
know, and my son is set in sometimes. So yeah, people do like to help you. Maybe a little bit of organization in the way you go about it. A
Yeah.
little planning. That's all that's required. A
Yeah.
little bit of planning.
Yeah. Definitely. All right, then. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jannat. It was nice. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.